It is now 6:01 p.m. on March 3rd, 2021. I hereby call the Planning Commission meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Joni, would you please conduct a roll call?
Chairperson Rick,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Applegate, Commissioner Hackett-Larson,
Here.
Commissioner Baum, Commissioner LeBlanc,
Here.
Commissioner Rainville, I have Commissioner Rainville online, but I'm not hearing any audio, so I'm going to mark him as present. And I have alternate Commissioner Apodaca.
Here.
I have 6 members present.
Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is public to be heard. Is there any member of the public who is here who, excuse me, I'm sorry. Who would like to go over the instructions for the meeting?
I can do that. Thank you. Good evening, everybody and members of the public. On the screen, you can see the audio options. There's 3 options to hear the audio for this presentation. It's either through your computer, the phone, or you can be in listen-only mode. You will should have received the call-in information when you did register with the 1-800 number, an access code, and an audio pin. If you only see 4 buttons as shown on the top screen here, you will need to expand the interface to provide you with the other options available. Currently, all attendees' microphones are muted. If you would like to communicate with the Commission, you may do so by clicking the hand button on that user interface, or you may type a question into the question pane. To click on the hand button, your hand will then show a vertical green arrow, and then you will be called upon by staff or the chairperson to speak to the public and to the members of the Commission. When you're done speaking, you can lower your hand by clicking the button again, and it will change from green to red. If you'd like to type into the question panel, you may do so by expanding the question panel and typing your question into the text box. That question will then be read aloud by either staff or the chairperson to be read into the record. Thank you.
Okay. If anyone in the meeting would like to be heard on an item that is not on our agenda, please raise your hand using the instructions that have been provided. I am not seeing any hands raised, and there are no questions in the question pane, so we will continue with the agenda. Next is item 5, approval of the minutes. Consider the February 3rd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting minutes. What would the commission like to do with the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 3rd, 2021 Planning Commission.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner LeBlanc. Would Commissioner Johnson, would you like to second?
I'll second that, yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes. Ms. Joni, would you please call for the vote?
Commissioner Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Johnson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Hackett-Larson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner LeBlanc, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Rainville, how do you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Apodaca, how do you vote?
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carries.
Okay, next on our agenda, new business. I hereby open a public hearing for a request by Kimberly Horn and Associates on behalf of Rivers Ventana LLC for approval of an overall development plan amendment number 3 for Ventana for property generally located east of Old Pueblo Road and north of RMB Court, Fountain, Colorado. Who will be presenting on this?
This will be Christy Martinez with the City of Fountain Planning Department. Good evening. As was read into the records, the item being considered tonight is an overall development plan amendment number 3 to the Ventana development plan. Ventana development is located on the east side of Old Pueblo Road and north of R&B Court. The area highlighted in the dashed area is the existing and already constructed portion of the Ventana development, which may be referred to elsewhere within this presentation as Ventana North. The shaded area on the southern side is going to be the area that is being proposed for amendment tonight and will be referred to elsewhere throughout this presentation as Ventana South. The property is zoned Planned Unit Development, or the PUD zone district. The total development area for Ventana is approximately 178 acres. However, the proposed amendment land area is approximately 57 acres. Within this proposed amendment area, the current land uses allowed are commercial and business park. It's being proposed to be changed to primarily residential, with 3 residential components being detached residential small lot, detached residential standard lot, and an attached product for patio homes. The developer is also proposing to retain approximately 3.6 acres for commercial along Old Pueblo Road. For the residential component, approximately 20 acres will be of that residential small lot. The development standards for that small lot area would have a minimum lot size of 3,375 square feet, and these are similar in size to the smaller lots within the Ventana North area. The residential lot standard lot area is approximately 18 acres, and those minimum lot sizes will be approximately 4,500 square feet, which are also similar in size lot sizes to the Ventana North. The attached residential patio home product will consist of approximately 10.5 acres for patio homes with a minimum lot size of 3,471 square feet. Those interior streets to the patio home development would be privately owned and maintained and would not be a public street similar to other roadways within Ventana development. As I mentioned, the developer is proposing to retain approximately 3.6 acres for commercial land along Old Pueblo Road. The permitted uses within that area would be convenience, general, and specialty retail, in addition to offices and restaurants, and those types of restaurants would be those without a drive-through facility. These commercial land uses are similar to the existing commercial land uses that had been previously approved in the overall development plan. They're also proposing an expansion to the community clubhouse and pool land area, so not necessarily to the clubhouse facility itself, but to the land area for potential expansion. There's also a detention pond for stormwater located in the lower southwest corner of the development, just north of R&B Court. So for some reference, the area C highlighted here is the residential small lots, so they're similar to the smaller lots on Ventana, which are directly north of that area. Area D is what is being referred to as the residential standard lot, which has that minimum lot size of 4,500 square feet. The proposed patio homes are within Area E, which has a close proximity to walking trails and to the community center. The expanded community and pool land area is circled in blue, so the existing clubhouse and the pool area are just to the north. And as you can see, there is a commercial land area that has frontage along Old Pueblo Road with the detention pond in the corner. There's a planned right-in, right-out access onto Old Pueblo Road, which would serve that commercial land area. There's also a proposed access point to R&B Court to access that land area D, the residential standard lots. with an additional access point to R&B Court through the existing Traders Parkway extension. The southern portion of the development for Ventana South is located within the Calhan Drainage Basin, which is different from the Ventana North, which is located within the Jenny Camp Creek Basin. Regardless of which drainage basin it is located in, a full spectrum detention pond is required, and this pond was planned to be located within the southwest corner of the site. All PUD zoned properties are required to provide a minimum amount of open space based upon the land uses, whether it is residential or commercial. This portion of the Ventana South development is required to provide 12.9 acres of open space. The developer is proposing approximately 16 acres of open space. Within that open space, there's various open space tracks to connect walking trails throughout the Ventana South portion and to connect to the existing trails within Ventana North. They're also proposing an approximate 3.7 acre park located in the southeast portion of the development. The developer did work closely with the city to accommodate those requests and needs for a park in this lower area. And those amenities would include a playground equipment for various ages, a half-court basketball court, and walking paths, in addition to a parking area for those who want to drive to the park and utilize those amenities within the park. There's also an extension of the 50-foot wide landscape buffer adjacent to the railroad tracks along the eastern portion of the site, which is similar to the landscape buffer that is provided on Ventana North. So this is the zoomed in exhibit of the park area. So the railroad tracks would be just to the top of the screen here, and I apologize, I didn't put a north arrow on the screen. Traders Parkway would be just off of the screen on the lower end, with R&B to the right-hand side. As you can see, they have the various playground equipment with a half-court basketball court and then a parking lot that would be proposed within that area. There are some off-site utility improvements that need to be installed as part of this lower portion of the development. Those off-site improvements include an extension of a 12-inch water line from an existing main in R&B Court to connect to the existing 36-inch main within Link Road. And the 36-inch water main from the west side of Old Pueblo Road will need to be extended west to South Santa Fe to connect those water mains at both ends. The city's utilities department has been working closely with both the developer, Rivers Ventana, and Challenger Homes on the negotiations of this agreement for the construction of the off-site water. And for those who need the visual description of where those water mains will be going, in this exhibit at the top, it would be the cul-de-sac for R&B Court. The red line would show the extension of the 12-inch water main up and around the School District 8 transportation facility to connect to a 36-inch existing main within Link Road. And the utilities is also working with the developer to extend the water main from South Santa Fe over and under the creek and then connecting into Old Pueblo Road. Old Pueblo Road is here with South Santa Fe on the left. Challenger Homes had entered into a memorandum of understanding or an MOU with the city in 2019 to address some concerns for off-site transportation improvements. It was agreed upon then that the developer would contribute $1.8 million towards transportation improvements within this area. $1.3 million would be allocated towards construction costs of the future Indiana Avenue crossing, which is slated to start construction within late 2021 or 2022, with $500,000 going towards the Old Pueblo Road improvements that were completed last year. The final payment installment as part of this MOU is due to the city at the end of March of 2021. The future land use plan within the comprehensive development plan for the city identifies the lower quote-unquote Ventana South area as village commercial and business park and industrial. Since the developer is proposing an amendment from the commercial land uses for this entire 57 acres to primarily residential, the request is generally not consistent with the comp plan. However, staff is supportive of that deviation due to the limited truck access along Old Pueblo Road and R&B Court. Staff finds that the overall development plan for Ventana, Amendment Number 3, is generally consistent with the review criteria set forth in Section 17.22.030 of the Fountain Municipal Code. And at tonight's meeting, staff would make a recommendation of approval of the overall development plan amendment number 3 for Ventana, subject to the condition that prior to scheduling this item for City Council, all staff and agency comments must be fully addressed. There's some minor changes to some text documents that are still required, which are outlined within the staff report, and that the developer must execute a water main extension agreement between Rivers Ventana LLC and the City of Fountain for the construction of the off-site water. Are there any questions for staff?
Alan, Mr. Commissioner Rainville, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a question. So out of the original 178 acres, I believe that's the original acreage of the parcel, what is the current commercial acreage after everything is said and done for this new development that we're doing?
This overall development plan is proposing to amend approximately 54 acres of the existing commercial business park area to residential, and they're retaining about 3.5 acres, and it's actually 3.7 acres for the commercial land area. Those are kind of the gross acreage. It doesn't account for the detention pond that's also located within the development. So there is a significant land use change from the commercial and industrial to a residential land use development.
I mean, is there anything that we can say or do, I mean, to have them increase the commercial and, you know, originally 57 acres going down to 3 acres seems like quite of a drastic change from the commercial districting.
You are correct. It is a significant change between the two land uses. The developer had worked closely with economic development and the city to do a holistic overview and review of this entire area in terms of the truck transportation, the roadway width, the ability for larger truck traffic, which you typically see with business park and industrial land uses, and their access to and from I-25 and to Highway 85 or Santa Fe. In reviewing that in a holistic approach, it was really difficult to be able to support such a large amount of the commercial and business park area in this area due to the limited transportation facilities and accesses to this area. As you know, Old Pueblo Road was recently updated and with some improvements to the shoulder and the paving of the roadway itself. But unfortunately, due to some limitations of property boundaries and the adjacent floodplain to Fountain Creek and Jimmy Creek confluence, we're not able to make that portion of the roadway wider, which would really limit the ability to attract industrial and commercial businesses to this area, which is part of the reason why staff is more supportive of changing the land use from such a significant business park and industrial area to residential. But it was still very important to retain a portion of it for commercial, to provide some of those needed day-to-day necessities for commercial in this area. There is limited commercial land use land available within the southern portion of the city, so we wanted to still provide some opportunity for those retailers to come in and be able to provide services to the existing residential areas, not only Ventana, but to Countryside as well.
And do you have a rough estimate of 3 acres? What would that, is that like 4 commercial buildings or 4 commercial properties, or is it 3 or is it 5? Do you have a rough idea of what that would equal as far as commercial buildings? Or
it would all really depend upon how the lots are laid out, if it's a multiple lot or if it's one larger lot with a smaller retail component.
Like a typical restaurant or a convenience store, what's the typical acreage or square footage of a typical property that has a like a convenience store, like the Dollar Tree? I think that is further down the road, or
Dollar General.
Dollar General.
I don't recall off the top of my head the exact size of the Dollar General building itself, but typically a smaller size commercial component, so maybe some of those the freestanding retailers that you see near the northern end, near Safeway at the markets at Mesa Ridge, is about a 2,500 to 3,000 square foot building. Typically, that's the size of a freestanding type of a fast food restaurant.
Right.
I do know that this commercial land area that's proposed doesn't allow for or isn't providing an allowance for drive-through, but for a perspective, I think the Taco Bell is about 3,000, 3,500 square feet. So you can kind of see what that size of a building would look like
Right.
for a commercial or a retail.
All right, thank you.
Vice Chairperson Johnson.
Christie, I hope you could clear something up for me. And to sort of refresh my memory, the last time we saw this a couple years ago, the proposal was to take the commercial aspect from 57 acres to 7 acres. Is that approximately the amount than the last time we saw this?
It has been slightly reduced. Let me go back to a previous slide. So in the previous request a couple of years ago, there was commercial proposed along Old Pueblo Road, which was about 3.5 to 4 acres. So that commercial component has still been retained. There was a portion in this lower corner near RMD Court in the southeast corner that was planned for, I believe, 4.5 acres of industrial land uses. But again, when we looked at can larger industrial trucks get in and out of this area without causing additional traffic concerns, safety issues, and conflicts between residential traffic and heavy industrial traffic. It was really reviewed that it wasn't really feasible to have the industrial land uses in that area, where we did work closely with the developer to transition that previous industrial land use to this park area in this corner to provide those amenities for these future residents.
Okay, because I was curious because, you know, when we saw that a couple years ago, most of the commission members thought that change was too drastic, and now they're coming back with one even more drastic than that. So I just want to make sure my recollection was correct. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other commission members have questions for staff? Mr. Apodaca.
Yeah, question I have, will there be at least, I know on Ventana North part, they widen Old Pueblo Road enough to have a left turn lane. Are they going to continue that to the road to the south of this new subdivision? Left turn lane at least, and then a right in, and I mean, I know the right in and right out at the commercial part, but to the REM court.
There would likely be a small portion of additional right-of-way that may be required along Old Pueblo Road. I don't know the specific details of how much and if an additional turn lane would be required. I do know that additional through lanes will not be able to be accommodated.
Yeah,
upon the existing roadway width.
Just more of the left turn lane to handle, so there's no backup on Old Pueblo Road for people trying to access this subdivision and anything on REM.
Jay,
So,
does that answer your question, Commissioner Apodaca?
yeah, I guess, I mean, if they're just gonna widen enough to handle the traffic, you know, like a left turn lane, that's a key point because traffic will be backed up on Old Pueblo Road at peak hours. And
Yeah, that's a heavily traveled road, especially with school times coming out of the high school. There's a lot of traffic coming out of there.
right,
Going down Link and then coming down Old Pueblo Road and vice versa. So
yeah, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of traffic coming off of REM Road, but once you put these houses in, they'll probably start, you know, increasing And so there needs to be at least the left turn lane to cover up to REM Road. That's just my concern.
Okay. Any other staff members have questions, comments, or concerns for Christie?
And Christie, just to clarify, so by the end of this month, the city of Fountain will have the $1.8 million in its coffers to do the improvements on Indiana and Old Pueblo Road that need to be done, which, like you said, won't be done until the end of 21, possibly in the beginning of 22.
We do. There is some remaining Moving Fountain Forward funds available for those improvements. For those of you who are not aware of what the Moving Fountain Forward funds are, there was a previous small percentage of sales tax that was allocated for transportation. So there is some funding available that were left over after that transportation sales tax has sunset to accommodate some of those improvements that are necessary at Indiana. And then to go back to Commissioner Apodaca's question concerning the Old Pueblo Road, the developer had messaged in the question saying that Old Pueblo Road will also be widened, same as what is to the north.
And just to clarify, so currently the city of Fountain does have at least will have at least $1.8 million to do those improvements on Indiana and on Old Pueblo Road. Those funds are actually in the city of Fountain accounts.
The developer was required to contribute $1.3 million towards those funds. I don't have the total dollar amounts that are needed for that. I'm not in charge or overseeing that project, so I have no idea what the total cost for those improvements are.
Right. I don't mean the cost, but I just like we have those funds that will go towards paying for those improvements, whatever the cost may be, whether it's $2.5 million or $3 million, but the city already does have 1.5
yes,
million.
We do have some.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other commission members? Okay, Christie, I have two questions. You noted that some of the streets will be privately owned. What's the advantage for the city for that? And will those streets be plowed by the city if they're privately owned during a snowstorm when we have amounts that are above what the ordinance calls for? I think it's like 2 or 3 inches. Then the city goes down the side streets. Would those privately owned streets still be plowed?
With privately owned streets, they are not maintained, nor are they plowed by the city. Privately owned streets would not meet the typical roadway widths and dimensions of a public street, which tend to be slightly wider than private streets. So no, the city wouldn't be responsible for any type of maintenance or snow plow on those private streets. Those would all be contributed through a separate funding mechanism, whether that was through the Metro District or if they have a separate homeowners association for those townhomes or for those patio homes. That would be part of their ongoing maintenance.
Okay, and then at previous meetings, we had talked about the size of minimum lot size. And I seem to remember something about because of the easements needed by the utilities and public safety, we were going to limit lot sizes to no less than 4,000. Yet on these patio-sized homes, we're down to around 3,500. Why are we going that low when we said in the past we were going to keep it at 4,000?
I don't recall that there was a specific minimum lot size. There has been discussion regarding some of the smaller lot sizes. But when we looked at the collective of these lot sizes within the residential small lot area, those lot sizes were very consistent with the previously approved lot sizes within Ventana North that are on the smaller side. Those smaller lots within Ventana North are generally located along the eastern boundary adjacent to the roadway. And then the patio homes tend to be smaller because they don't tend patio homes don't tend to be 2 stories. Sometimes they can be, but a majority of the time patio homes tend to be ranch level with a smaller footprint, so that there is smaller.
Okay. Thank you for the answering of those questions. Mr. Farrar, Eric Farrar, I see your question. As soon as the developer comes up, I will be asking your question, sir. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. So, Christy, I just wanted to point out a couple things to kind of piggyback on Commissioner Rick's comments about the streets. Right now, based on the suffixes that they're showing on these streets, they are showing them as public streets based on their suffixes. So before this development plan gets approved, they need to remedy that. And looking through my records, I don't see where the street names that they show have been approved. So I would recommend prior to any development plan approval that that issue gets straightened out.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for staff before we move on to the developer? And then from the developer, we will open it up to the public. Okay, I'm assuming Mr. McConnell is the developer's representative. Sir, if you want to unmute yourself, if you're the appropriate party to speak, or whomever wants to speak for the developer, the floor is yours.
Okay, hold on just a moment, Chairperson Rick. I need to move the applicant's representative over so that they can.
Okay.
Just a moment while I make that transition.
Sure, not a problem.
Okay, Mr. Houck, would you like me to close my presentation and to allow you to open yours, or would you like me to pull up your presentation? Oh, you've got it pulled up.
Okay, oh, go ahead, sir.
Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. And you can see my screen, the orange screen?
I see a screen with a bunch of projects listed in it, kind of like a
Oh, okay.
file organizer.
Let me change that screen then.
While you're doing that, sir, I'm going to answer a question from the public. There's a question in here for Mr. Philip Kim. Says, my apologies for logging in late, but why is the purpose of the detention center? In the state of Colorado, there's a requirement to retain runoff from hard packed surfaces like roads, streets, those sorts of things. And it has to be, you have to have a detention pond or detention area that will hold that runoff for up to 72 hours so that it doesn't run off into the stream and cause flooding downstream. It's a state requirement that detention centers be made, and there's a whole complex formula that comes up to determine how large the detention center has to be based off of the what's known as impenetrable surface of area that the water won't penetrate. So that's the purpose, sir.
Okay, can you see my orange screen now?
I have a black screen, sir. I'm not sure what anybody else is seeing. There we go.
Okay. Too many options.
It's always the way it is.
Yes. Well, thank you, Chairman and Commission. My name is Jim Hauk. I'm actually with Kimley Horn, and joining me tonight is also Jim Beyer with Challenger Homes. I think I could quickly hit on a couple of these quick questions up front. Our goal really was tonight was to show some slides that illustrate, give a little more texture and color to the context of the ODP. I think Christy's done a great job of covering the nuts and bolts and the specifics, and we'll take advantage of obviously her good presentation and give you just a little more view of the project as it becomes, as we begin to envision the changes to the ODP. Just to touch base quickly on the commercial comment, as Christy had mentioned, there was a great deal of conversation and assessment regarding the amount of commercial. And I think ultimately it comes down to this idea of really maintaining and developing what's available really to support neighborhood scale retail. And we think that's what we have provided here. It does give us a nice option for probably 4 to 5 little businesses in there ultimately. As it relates to traffic, the traffic report does indicate that Old Pueblo Road will be widened enough to provide for those left-hand turns, as the commissioner had asked about, onto RMB Court. And then as for, I was thinking of the lot sizes, and we'll show some of this in detail here, but really the thing to think about with the patio home is you do lose a side yard because these are connected, attached, they're paired, or what they would normally in the old days call a duplex kind of model of a housing type. And the private streets are really isolated to the patio area and the patio home development. And as the commissioner had asked too about the street names, we did go through an exercise in there, and we can provide some background as far as street names being tested for availability. They have not yet been, I guess, maybe officially posted. So as we move forward, we can definitely talk some more about that. But let's just move forward a little bit and give you a little texture and color to the ODP and a little context. So our agenda, again, was really to give you some context to the neighborhood, the approved plan, some comparisons, and then some of the residential product types, as well as the commercial and open space context for the community. Again, Christy did a great job of providing, again, context for the community. But here, again, here's just another snapshot of how it fits within the overall community count here along the creek in this mix of rural and newer residential development. Again, just another snapshot of that, given in context of kind of the school environment for these new homes and new residents. And again, as Christy had mentioned, we kind of refer to the north half of the site as Ventana North, and the half that we're talking about today with the ODP amendment is Ventana South. And you can see for orientation wise, Old Pueblo Road, R&B Court and Link Road. As we move into the, before we get into more specifics, I want to open up the opportunity for Mr. Byers to join me. We did talk to the neighborhood and the community as a whole, and we did get some feedback through a online survey. Jim, are you able to talk with me or join me?
Give me just a moment and I can unmute him.
Okay.
Okay. You then.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. And thank you, Jim. So as far as the neighborhood outreach goes, way back in March of 2020, we had scheduled some neighborhood meetings with the folks that currently live in Ventana. And those were scheduled for meeting at the clubhouse so we could have a one-on-one with those folks. COVID hit and we were canceled twice for that meeting. So in late April of 2020, we decided that the virtual world was the way to do this. And so what we did is put together a video presentation and posted that through the city and on the Metro District's website, and had it available for, I believe, 4 days for viewing, and then notified all the residents of Ventana to view the video, the presentation, and then provide us feedback. And part of the feedback came through just traditional comments back to Christy and the city planning staff. And then other comments were posted essentially through a online survey, which we ended up with about a quarter of the residents participating in the online survey. And everything, for the most part, as you can kind of scroll through these numbers, but they were pretty supportive in general of the reduction in commercial due to the quality of life and concerns that they may have that were tied to the industrial land use more than the commercial land use, but certainly they favor the residential use over either of those. We did get about 30 written comments that were vetted through the city, and we responded to all of those, and just trying to deal with the challenges of a new way of presenting information to folks. So I think it was fairly successful. And then we have, based off of those comments, addressed a couple of concerns. A lot of those were tied back to the Metro District and the available space at the swimming pool and things like that, which we're dealing with as a separate application. And then a lot of information came back on what other improvements they'd like to see in open space. And so we're dealing with those in the new proposed park. And I think that's about it, Jim. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. It's Christy. I mean, Christy again did a great job of kind of breaking down the makeup of the application and the details on the technical reviews and comments. And we again wanted to just take you a step further and kind of help envision what the development will look like. And again, just for context, and what we've done in this case is, flip this. The north is to your right. The railroad is across the top of the page. R&B here on the right. I'm sorry, north is to the left. Sorry. And then Old Pueblo Road here with the right in, right out on the commercial site, which would be consistent with what we're proposing today. As we move forward a little bit further, it gives you a little aerial from 2019. All of this on the north has been built out and folks are moving in. That's been 100% completed. This represents kind of the vacant land here on the right with Traders Parkway bisecting it, but the industrial and commercial land here is vacant along R&B Court. So we move towards the proposal. We have tried to give, again, taking it beyond bubbles, but trying to give you a little more character of kind of the development pattern and kind of the makeup of how the neighborhood will evolve as we move forward with this amendment. Just for context, again, patio homes, retail, and then the new park that Christy had indicated here. As we move forward, again, just for quick comparison, residential goes from 70 acres to 112 acres total. Retail from the original, and it was broke down into two categories, light industrial and commercial retail. So the light industrial totally disappears, but we do take the commercial from 15.5 to 3.8. And then open space grows from 55 to 72 acres as a quick comparison of the two plans, the approved and the existing, or the existing and the proposed. So the next few slides, I'd like to take some time to just kind of highlight kind of this development pattern, the consistencies with what's happening in the north and what we're proposing on the south. You can see the highlighted residential units here. So we have three different products again, as had been indicated, the standard versus the small lot and the patio. We're going to kind of walk you through that a little bit and give you a kind of a recap of one, what's been developed and successfully completed today to what we're proposing moving forward. So let's start with a quick overview of the existing neighborhood. And I have some video clips here, and you can see kind of the reminders of the makeup of the neighborhood, the mixture of architecture, the streetscape, then also the relationship to the open space and the units as well as we move through this. You can see where the individuals have personalized the spaces and both from an architectural standpoint as well as from a landscape perspective. Again, illustrating another pass through from the streets to the open space. It will continue to be a theme that we will plan to move forward with as we get into the south portion of the ODP development area. Again, you can see the relationship of the open space, the neighborhood, kind of the makeup of the streets. And this is consistent with the standard lots that Christy had indicated. The next product that let me back up here. We don't need to see that again, do we? The next one is what Challenger Homes is calling the Ascent. It's a little bit different product. And this is also a little fly through of a product or a project that has just been completed in Colorado Springs with this same style of architecture and layout. And as you can see, that's kind of highlighted in this upper right-hand corner of the ODP plan. As we go through this, I think there's some things to point out. And oops, there we go. Well, I can't drive my own PowerPoint. Again, so here's some of the architecture and the looks of the architecture that's being proposed with this product. It's very consistent and blends well with the other patterns. Jim, you mentioned something about this. This would be a first for this product in the Fountain area. I don't know if you can still talk or not. I can continue to talk a little bit about this. So you can see that these are a little narrower footprints, gives them a little different landscape option. Also takes it from a 2 to 3 car garage down to a 1 and 2 car garage. So it's a little narrower, a little bit taller product. in what I would say is a little bit more contemporary lines to some of the trim work and stuff on the architecture. But you can kind of see again the consistency that they continue to put in all their products with the patio home, or with the Ascent homes. The next product and character we want to highlight here is really about the patio homes. We've created this model of the whole new south piece, and we wanted to kind of give you a sense of, again, the scale, the relationship of the architecture, and just the build out of the product as a whole. This is kind of the Ascent area that we were just flying through, and then as we move through this, you'll see there's some of the presidential units in context with the Trader Parkway, and then this road here leads us into the patio homes. And the patio homes would also exit on this, I guess, literally on the south end of the site. But the patio homes here again are kind of the paired units. They're built around a courtyard, and their relationship is really related to a landscape buffer, then the commercial parcel, and Old Pueblo Road we just off the screen here. And then this is the actual cul-de-sac right there off the end of the existing drive here with the clubhouse. So we just wanted to give you a glimpse of that. Oops, I'll go to the next slide again. And this is another product that Challenger has been able to complete recently. And we also took a pass through this project to give you a sense of, again, the architecture, the relationship of the doorways, the street, and also the relationship of some of the open space. This one has several different relationships as it goes to the open space, but you can see here, we have landscapes here, we have a connection down through the middle of houses, and then we also have some courtyard spaces, and that would be consistent with what we're trying to produce ultimately with this little enclave of patio homes. So any questions specifically about that at this point? I don't want to leave people out. If they have some questions, I'm happy to answer those, or we can wait. There's a couple more minutes here. We can have some slides, but I wanted to make sure.
Commissioner Rainville, go ahead.
This is Commissioner Rainville. Yeah, so a patio home, that's similar to a duplex, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of the new contemporary version of the duplex. Yes.
And then I noticed some pathways and such, but those pathways will not be accessible to the public. Is that correct? Since that, I know the streets are private, but are the pathways and the trails in that section also private?
I think the idea here is you could walk into here, come across the open space, and continue through if you would like.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's not a gated community.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. But I think thanks for asking that question, because I think it's good to have those clarifications up early. And then from an open space standpoint, Christy had mentioned too, we were looking at consistently trying to bring the pattern of open space and trails and things through the project as we move to the south. There's trails extensions, and then the additional park here amongst the new houses on the north or the upper right-hand corner of the slide. And then as mentioned, there's an extension of the clubhouse property. Again, a different application process, but we wanted to recognize it as part of the ODP application and request. I just wanted to go quickly to look a little bit more at the park itself, and give you a sense of scale. As Christy had mentioned, playgrounds, some hardcourt play areas, some passive and active play areas, as well as some parking, as mentioned, 2 off-site parking, And then we'll just kind of fly through this real quick in the model, give you a sense of the scale and relationship. So, we didn't put in every backyard fence, but there is a fence along the property, backs of the property, but also gives you a good sense of the scale of the open space and the relationship of trails and to the neighborhood. Again, we end here with some connections, again, going straight out into the neighborhood. Jim, I was going to hand this one back to you. You could talk a little bit more about the details of the MOU that Christy had highlighted.
Commissioner Johnson, go ahead. We're not hearing you, Brent. No, still not.
Oh, sorry.
Try again, Brent.
How about now?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, sorry, my earphones came slightly unplugged out of my headphone jack. Okay, so on a previous slide, it says that you're increasing the dwelling unit count by 270. And as part of your traffic study, I'm assuming what, estimating 4 trips per day per dwelling unit?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so give or take 1,000 extra trips a day versus what was projected for trips per day for if we're developed out as commercial light industrial.
Good question. I don't have that handy, but we can definitely provide that, get that information to you.
Okay.
I don't have that off the top of my head, sorry.
No problem. My second thing is, the last time we saw this a couple years ago, I was opposed to changing the ODP to eliminate all that commercial. The way that it's currently laid out, the amenities and the benefits for the proposed residents in this area are fantastic. But what I want you to do is sell me on why changing from a commercial with potential business and employment base to a higher density residential is beneficial for the city, not the people that live there. Like I say, you got a park, you got lots of trails. That's all well and good for the people that live there. But how does switching the development plan from commercial to high density medium density residential benefit the city as a whole?
Well, I think Christy and Jim Byers, the Challenger, could try to charm in on this a bit. But as mentioned, I think the marketability, the real estate has been here. It's been inactive, both in the market for quite some time. A lot of it to do with its accessibility to the greater community as a whole, and its access to Highway 25. I think with the improvements along Old Pueblo Road, there are some benefits being made that would improve that. But I think ultimately, I think through the discussions with economic development in the planning team, the trying to hold on to the real estate for commercial light industrial uses was not really feasible at this time because of the access, and there was no near-term or long-term really solutions for that. But it was still key that we recognize that, again, we don't want to create deserts. You hear a lot about that these days, grocery store deserts and things of that nature. Retail is important to neighborhoods, and we think we've provided enough here to serve the existing and the proposed residents with some of those daily services that they could benefit from. So they're not making lots of trips on the roads, but they do have it accessible. I think ultimately housing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to speak to that. This is Jim Byers with Challenger. So Commissioner Johnson, I remember the conversations that we had, 3 years ago or however long it's been now. the situation hasn't changed much. You know, this is a difficult spot to develop as commercial. Clearly, it's been very successful as a residential area for the city of Fountain, and holding on to the vacant land where it could sit vacant for decades, as it has already. There doesn't appear to be a real market for commercial development in this part of the city. So as the landowners, our solution is to continue on with residential development, which has, again, proven to be very successful. There's clearly a demand for the housing in the city of Fountain, which is a benefit for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Please continue, sir. Please continue.
Are you at the end of your presentation, Jim, or did you want to back up to the slide you had? Yeah. Okay. So Jim had asked me to touch a little bit on the agreement that we had with the city. And I think Commissioner Rainville, you had asked for some specifics about the money. The total that we agreed to pay in advance to the city is the $1.8 million. And essentially what the agreement is to provide a $3,600 per lot development fee that the city could use towards traffic improvements. They chose to direct it as they thought was the best and necessary approach. So we did not dictate to the staff and city managers to what direction that money went. We just agreed that, yes, this is a necessary component of doing development. And in a city like the city of Fountain, where there are some traffic challenges, we committed the $3,600 based off of a per lot fee, and kind of with some expectations of moving into this portion of our property and developing it residential and projected unit counts, we arrived at the $1.8 million. To date, we have paid about 1.3, so there is, it's a little bit more than that. I think our final payment, which is due around the end of the month, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 to 500. I can't give you an exact amount, but it falls within that range. So we think that this is a pretty positive and approach towards being team players with the city and helping you guys deal with some of the challenges of development.
And I have a follow-up question to that then. So in 2019, it was $3,600 per lot fee. Mm-hmm. So now it looks like you're going to be adding 270 lots. So will that $3,600 per lot development fee be added to the 270 additional lots, or is that just from the original agreement? So that was the agreement at that time.
So essentially and I think I understand your question, but essentially what happens is we have a credit of $3,600 per lot.
Correct.
And effectively it applies towards this property in Ventana South. But if, for instance, we only developed 100 lots, we could use that remainder on a different site within the city boundary.
Okay. So that agreement was for the south development. Okay.
It's just an agreement in general for
Yeah.
traffic impact due to development.
Okay.
Not necessarily specific to Ventana, but that's certainly our intent.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, does that complete your presentation, or do you have more to go?
No, that was the extent of our presentation.
Okay,
Jim, this is Tim McConnell. Thanks, Chairman. I want to try to address one of the comments or questions that Brent Johnson had on the traffic generation. The traffic study we prepared showed most of this as single family, and then retail for the 3 to 4 acres there along Old Pueblo Road. But just in general, using ITE trip generation, commercial and retail is typically a higher trip generator than single family. So I wanted to put that out there. If this was to be developed as all commercial, you'd actually have more traffic coming out of the development. Industrial properties, that can vary depending on the use. Could be above or could be below single family residential, but I wanted to put that out there for the traffic trip generation and say if it was all commercial, it would be a higher trip generator than single family residential.
Thank you, Tim.
any other members of the commission have any questions, comments, or concerns before we start with the public? So I have a question regarding the privately owned streets. Since the city staff is saying that the city isn't going to be plowing or maintaining the roads in that area that has the privately owned streets, how are you planning on collecting funds to plow the streets, maintain them? You know, if eventually streets do have damage to them, they give way and they need to be fixed, what's the funding mechanism for that?
Commissioner Ricks, this is Jim Byers again with Challenger. So typically what we do with this type of a development, so with the patio homes, it sets up more or less like a gated community. So this won't have a physical gate, but it will have a kind of a buffer boundary fence around it. And what we do is there's an HOA that's set up for this, and HOAs collect funds as a typical HOA will, and part of that would be to accrual for maintenance of roads, snowplow, maintenance of landscaping, etc. So it's a very private oriented space and homeowners. So in pretty typical buyer for this product is a retiree. What we see usually is a cash buyer who is a move down into a retirement type setting. And part of the reason the planning of this has set up this way, it also gives a really close connection to the clubhouse, which is a high demand amenity for retirement type buyers.
Okay. Mr. Commissioner Rainville.
Back to the, whoops. So as far as like the clubhouse, will there be a future pathway? I mean, I see that there's no trail to go from those patio homes to the clubhouse.
Yeah, that's
probably a good idea to put.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I noticed that about the same time you did, I bet. So
Okay.
There would be, absolutely.
That's my fault.
Another question about the patio homes is there a particular reason why you decided to make those a private street and not just, you know, have it a public street? I mean, it seems like a small section.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying to a minute ago. It really sets up as effectively a gated community, a private community. And we found over the development of these, and this would be our 4th or 5th one that we've done over the last 5 or 6 years. It doesn't cause any problem at all. And what it allows us to do is kind of deviate from some of the public road standards. So you may be able to see some little notches cut in. Those are parking areas, so visitor parking and things like that, where you wouldn't be able to have a visitor parking on a public road. You don't typically want people backing out into traffic. So that allows that to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission before I open it up to the public? Okay, members of the public, if you wish to speak, I have a bunch of questions here written, but I'm going to let people raise their hand and speak first. I have a Mr. Joshua Cooper. Mr. Cooper, would you care to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hey, sir. So I've actually got a few. I'm one of the admins for the Facebook group here in the neighborhood, and by de facto, I've had people send me a number of them. I'll pause in between so folks can kind of write them down or whatever, and then I'll kind of shut my mouth and let you guys answer them. But one is you guys were just talking about the trails towards the clubhouse from that pseudo gated community. It's interesting that that's brought up because the folks in phase 1, which is the area right there by the rec center, there are trails that, according to the ODP, were supposed to be completed prior to the beginning of phase 2. Phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, and phase 6 are completely sold out, and those trails have not yet been built. And folks feel a little betrayed along those lines because some of those folks bought their houses with the anticipation of trails, and the development committee approved a change to the development plan to allow more houses to be built, sacrificing trails that were supposed to go from like Benicia through, I believe it's Lavagna. So there's one thing. The commercial area that's proposed here, a number of us have issue with the location of it being right next to the rec center where the pool is. We've already had several incidents where there have been pedophiles caught by PD in the parking lot early on. Apparently 2 of them got into an argument or something. There's been incidents where people have parked across the other side of the street, taking pictures of people at the pool, to the point where we've had the Metro District has gone and gotten some privacy screens to put up. And putting commercial area butted right up against the pool is probably not the best place for it. Maybe move that retention pond over and put the commercial area over on R&B a little more. And along that same lines, one of the biggest things that a lot of folks were talking about was for that commercial area, instead of maybe having multiple, as you were talking about the desert, see if they can attract a King Soopers or something, because there's really nothing on this end of the fountain area. So whatever got put there would be pretty darn popular in terms of supermarket, because you got us, Cumberland Green, and to a large extent, I think you also have a number of folks that would come from Morrison Ranch. The rec center and pool are already too small for the neighborhood size. They're talking about expanding. Well, I will give you a little bit of my background. I've spent a little over 20 years in aquatics. I'm an aquatic facility operator, and as well as a lifeguard and water safety instructor trainer for the Red Cross. And I can tell you by law there is no way that they can expand unless they're going to build onto that building. There is no more room in the pump house. They cannot just tap into the pools that are already there. That is strictly prohibited by law, and the turnover rates would not support it. The pump room has no more space for any more pumps or filters. So anytime that they're telling you, oh, we're going to build on, either they're ignorant or they know and they're just trying to get away with it. And then they're going to throw their hands up in the air afterward and go, oops, well, we tried, it just didn't work out. I've been saying this since they put out the original stuff earlier, but they're still continuing to say, oh, no, we're going to make it work. There's not a way to make it work based on what they're saying. My recommendation is put something closer against the railroad tracks, just build another, like a splash pad with a hot tub and another rec center of some sort, because I mean, the last 100 or so homes were built with COVID. So I can tell you, not this past summer, but the summer before, the place was packed. It was too small. The gym wasn't big enough. The rec center isn't big enough to support the stuff that they promised for games and stuff like that for kids to have a game room. And it's just not big enough at all. Moving into the construction itself, the developer and the builders fail to manage their subcontractors, and folks fly through the roads. The reality is 25 miles an hour is too fast, especially when you're talking a fully loaded commercial vehicle. So when you have a dump truck that's fully loaded and it's going 25 miles an hour, if a kid jumps out from in front of a truck or in front of a dumpster, I can tell you right now that kid's going to be flattened, and it's not pretty. They're going to be splattered all across the pavement. Along those same lines, my house still has code violations. I've got exposed Romex coming through the ceiling where the armored cable isn't covering it all. I'm still waiting for that to get fixed. The guys that are doing the building and the construction in elevated areas, like the roofers and framers and folks like that, the majority of them are never anchored in. So it's a complete OSHA violation. Moving into the adding the additional 250 plus homes, schools are already maxed out. So there's a question from folks about what the school plan is to have more folks, especially for the elementary and high school. The middle school, from what I'm hearing from folks, is not of great concern because it is newer and has some of those additions that they just did. The Hidden Prairie Pueblo intersection already has ice that builds up anytime it snows, and that's never mitigated. So you can go ahead and start stopping about 50 feet before the stop sign, and hopefully you'll stop before you enter Old Pueblo and fly through the stop sign.
What intersection is that, sir?
The Hidden Prairie and Old Pueblo. It slopes down quite a bit. It's probably got anywhere from a 3 to 5% grade going downhill. So, you know, even if you're doing 15 to 20, you can start breaking 50 feet back and hopefully you'll stop. But, you know, they talk about plowing 3 to 4 inches. And I'll tell you, I've lived here, come April, it'll be 3 years. I've seen a plow come here once. I've heard of a plow come here one other time. And I can tell you it's been 3 to 4 inches more than one time. And I understand that the main roads are the primary focus. But you know, it just comes down to, you know, they say it's going to get done and it doesn't. I'm not trying to beat the city up over it because, I mean, I came out of Alaska and we got our stuff plowed like once a winter, and, you know, winter's like 7-8 months. So it's not an issue to me, but that's just, you know, when they're talking about the plowing and stuff like that, I kind of take issue to that. And then the final thing before I shut up will be when it comes to the money and the funding, development fees, that lot fee that they were just talking about, all that kind of stuff. My question is, who's footing that bill? Is that coming out of Ventana Metro District? Is that coming out of the folks that are going to be building these houses, that are having these houses built for them? Things along that line. Because right now the board is still majority Challenger executives. There's plenty of people in the neighborhood that would love to apply, but every time they turn around and try, they go, oh, yep, you can't apply. It's closed. then when it does open and they try and apply, oh, it's too late, you can't apply now, there's not enough time between now and elections. But I know of at least 2 people that have said they would gladly step up and take a seat on the board. But the reality is we don't have any trust or faith in the challenger executives, especially running our board, because they do what's best for their wallet, not for us. I mean, that's for the most part pretty much it. Oh, I will say one positive, at least for me, I'm not against the additional houses and reducing the commercial aspect of it. I've seen a majority of the styles that they're talking about. What it really comes down to is when you start looking at the amenities, they focus on a tiny clubhouse that it's not even capable of the first 250 houses, much less the additional 100 that they built over the last year. And now they want to do another 250, 270. There's just no way that's going to work. So I'll be quiet. You can go ahead and I'll mute myself and let you ask any other questions you have for me.
Okay, Mr. Houck, would you care to respond to the gentleman's issues?
Yeah, I will share a few, and I would open the floor also to Mr. Byers as well, more from the Challenger Home side, because there's a lot of this is more related to maybe district related issues and some things beyond, I guess, the ODP conversation. You know, as far as additional homes in the school crowdedness discussion, you know, the school district is involved with the reviews of all plans coming through the city, and those considerations are brought forth through the review comment process. And to date, we have not gotten indication from the school districts that they are not supportive of the project or the number of potential children coming to the schools. As far as the, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones here. Recreation center, as mentioned earlier, it's going to go through a separate development process. We're just with the ODP just adding some additional space to make things available for the amendments to the site plan of the clubhouse. The topic has been and has been investigated by some pool folks and some suppliers and designers, and the pool is not really the focus. It would be more probably of a splash pad, and the understanding that there would be a separate set of filters and pumps and mechanical equipment for that as part of the process. But again, that's been very preliminary, and nothing has really been put on paper yet. But the first step was to at least expand the site, create some opportunities for that moving forward. As far as the grocery store goes, there's been no indication of that as a marketable site yet for a grocery store, but I definitely can understand the questions and the desire to have something closer as the community grows in this area. But you know, we'll definitely keep our eyes and ears open for those opportunities to come forth. Jim, would you like to talk any more about the other relationships or other questions?
Sure. So I guess I'm the person that gets to address the concerns with the construction of homes. Unfortunately, you're probably not speaking with the right person. So I guess, Mr. Cooper, you would need to pursue your complaints on that front with the warranty department and the vertical construction folks. What we do is land development, and really can't speak to the rest of it. I think there was some concerns with trails, and to my knowledge, we have completed trails that have been shown on ODP to date. Whether the ODP was amended and trails were put to a later phase or something like that, I don't know. But in my time with Challenger, we have constructed the trails as required. And trails to the southern portion of the first filings, they'll be part of this development. I mean, we're not getting away from doing that. We haven't gotten away from doing any of the other trails.
I would also kind of just back up a little bit with trails, and there might be some clarification to be had with the district itself, but also as we talk about the clubhouse again, we talked about safety, and we recognized that early when we were doing a quick site analysis of the property and the potential area for growth and the scale of that growth. So we'll almost have an acre buffer between the retail building pads, so to speak, and the pool itself. We recognize the fact that screening is important, both from safety perspective and also it's windy, and pool environments are more inviting when they're not so windy. So those site improvements were also considered as far as some of the objectives that would be met with the plans moving forward. And there will be obviously more conversation and more engagement as those plans move forward.
So let me go ahead and ask a question here with regards to the safety in the commercial area. Typically around commercial areas, they'll put up a fence over where the Dollar General is. They put up a 6-foot cinder block fence to separate the commercial area from the houses. Would it be possible for you to put something like that in along as a barrier between the commercial area and the clubhouse to prevent peeping toms, if you will?
Yeah, I think that definitely can be considered as a design criteria as we move forward with the site development plans. Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Rick, this is Jim Byers.
Yes.
So I think what Jim was trying to communicate a couple of minutes ago, so if you're out there now, the pool is surrounded by the wrought iron style fence. It's not actually wrought iron, but it's a clearly open, visible fence. And it really does, from a planner, landscape architect perspective, it seems to have some problems, especially along a road that's as traveled as Old Pueblo. So certainly that is something that needs to be addressed. And we can talk about that with the district, but it's definitely on the radar for coming together a little better. And so if we expand to the south with what we're planning, it would definitely have a privacy treatment rather than that open treatment.
Okay. Thank you on that, sir. Secondly, and this is for the public, the gentleman brought up a question about overcrowding at schools. Christy, do you want to talk about the meetings you have with the school district with regards to expansion so that the schools can readjust their plans based off of development?
Sure. So the school district is notified of all development, and they do review the development growth and those patterns in order to determine which district boundaries in terms of the schools itself. So whether that's Stordal or Aragon, specifically in this area, and which developments those students would go to. They are aware of this proposed amendment to increase the residential development and have not had any objections to whether or not the existing schools can accommodate that growth. that does not mean that in the future that the school district may not modify the school boundaries, meaning which students would be required to go to Jordan versus which would be required to go to Aragon.
Thank you, Christy. I will tell you that I've personally spoken with the deputy superintendent in charge of facilities for the Fountain School District, and they are keenly aware of what developments are going on and the need to redo their boundaries almost on an annual basis based off of the developments that we have going on. I will tell you what they told me. One of the problems that we have is when, from a school perspective, they plan out how many students are going to go to a school. They typically, what they do is they count the number of rooftops and say, based off the rooftops, here's how many families we have, here's how many likely students we will have, and that's what they come up with their numbers. There's a phenomenon going on right now called families living with families, to where instead of one family in a house, because housing costs are so high, that two families are sharing a house, and it's throwing some of their numbers off, causing some overcrowding issues that they hadn't planned on. They are diligently trying to work through that, according to the deputy superintendent. Okay, I am not seeing any other hands, so I am going to go through Commissioner Rainville. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Christy about, the planning commission, and I noticed one of the residents there was talking about increasing the clubhouse and maybe building another clubhouse, and I just wanted to make it clear that our responsibility as a planning commission is we can't mandate that the developer increase the size of a clubhouse or increase the plowing of streets and adding new clubhouses. We can just vote as far as does this ODP meet the requirements of what's happening in the neighborhood, and we really don't have much say in what the developer does as far as clubhouse, which is an amenity for the residents, and whether or not when people buy their homes they're told that, oh, we're going to have this amenity and that amenity. It's the planning commission can't go and mandate that they have to do those things. That's between, I think, the developer and the landowners and the residents of that community.
That's correct. The clubhouse is an amenity that is proposed by the developer. It is not an amenity that is required by the city or by city code. So that is something that the developer chose to install within this development. So the city doesn't have the ability to dictate that an additional clubhouse be constructed within this development or that the clubhouse building be expanded. There is an open space requirement associated with the PUD. However, on this lower area, the developer has already exceeded that amount in terms of the open space and amenities. So they are meeting the minimum code requirements for open space in a residential development.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with some of the questions that were typed in here. First question, what is the predicted price range on these homes?
That's a tough one to respond to right now, because the price of homes, obviously, as everybody knows, is going up. But one of the factors that's going on right now is the price of materials, and they're going. There's been a 200% increase over the last calendar year on wood products, i.e., the lumber that we use to build homes. That reflects something in the neighborhood of a 5 to 8% increase in building the structure. And then of course it's market driven, but right now I believe the average sale price for our products, and we have on this particular plan, there's 3 products. So you're going to see a range from the mid 200s through the high 300s. acres. So it's kind of a widespread. I understand that, but there are 3 different product types. 2 of them which have not been built before in the city of Fountain. So the market rate that somebody paid for their home in filing 6 is probably very similar to what you would see for the bulk of this development.
Okay, next question. The $1.8 million due from the developer, is this coming out of the Ventana Metro District bonds, or the HOA, or is this coming from the developer itself?
This is coming from the developer ourselves.
Okay. Okay, there's a HOA, as I understand it. The question is there's HOA in Ventana North already. You're telling us that there's going to be a separate HOA for the patio homes. For the rest of the homes in Ventana South, are they going to have the same HOA fees as Ventana North?
I would say yes. I think it's also to be determined, but I believe that there is a metro district, not an HOA, associated with the existing development.
Okay.
So the metro district will expand, and the only component that would have an HOA is the patio homes. So the patio home buyer would pay an HOA fee as well as a metro district fee.
Okay. All right. We talked about the roads. Water pressure. They're saying, Mr. Reeves is saying we have issues with water pressure in Ventana. You talked about adding some water lines. Is this going to help alleviate the problems that they're already having, or is this just to handle the new homes that are being built?
This is a project that is of far larger scale than just our development. I don't know if anybody from utilities is on this call, but it's a significant infrastructure improvement that will, I'm no engineer, but it should impact your water pressure quite a bit.
Hey,
Okay.
Jim, Commissioner Rick, this is Tim McConnell, Drexel Burrell.
Yes, sir.
The installation of in particular, the water line from Lincoln Old Pueblo over to South Santa Fe will significantly help this entire part of town. We know there's already water pressure and flow issues over at the high school and in the countryside area. And this line will help alleviate all of that, along with fire flows for all the developments. So initially, the first line across Fountain Creek is the bigger piece of the puzzle, and then the link down R&B Court, and then there will be future infrastructure to the east. But these lines will help increase flow and pressure within this entire portion of town.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to address one of the I'm going to address one of these questions myself. The question is, can we make the commercial areas larger and less homes? And I understand your frustration. We would all like to have commercial areas scattered around town to give us more access to what we need immediately rather than having to drive up to the mesa every day. I personally live in countryside. If you've ever gone up Link Road coming up into Jimmy Camp, there are 2 areas on each side of the road that are zoned commercial. I've lived here for 26 years, And for the past 26 years, we have been trying to get people to come in and build a gas station, build a restaurant, build a grocery store. We have been trying, and the city has been trying. I've personally spoken with Kimberly Bailey, the Economic Development Director. They have sent out letters to 21 different grocery stores, grocery chains, trying to get them to come to Fountain to do more grocery stores, particularly on the south side of town. And we got one response back, and the response back was, we'll come build a grocery store if you use your tax money to guarantee that we're going to be profitable. And the city council has wisely, in my opinion, declined to do that. So I share your frustration. I'm sure you all want more commercial out there, but the reality is the commercial assets aren't willing to relocate here. And we, as the Planning Commission and the city government, have no way to force them to. So unfortunately, we're kind of limited as to what we can do. Question for Mr. Cooper: is there a way to get non-potable well in the area to feed fire hydrants and lawn sprinklers? No, the current code requires that the fire hydrants and lawn sprinklers all be linked to the city system, so that in the event that there's a major fire, that the city can provide additional pressure to the area, rather than trying to get water out of a well which may go dry. I've spoken to the fire chief about it personally. There's not a way to do that. Question: how would the proposed amendment affect the current house or property values?
That's a question that's asked all the time. There's lots of unknowns there. I think the fact that we are developing in a pattern consistent with what's there today would only support the values and the long-term values of the properties in this area.
Okay. Once approved, when would development begin in Ventana South?
We are hoping to start development this year.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to get into the detail of that, but they're probably thinking home construction. Land development obviously takes quite a while, so you would be 6 to 8 months in land development before you could get a home to go vertical.
Okay. Let me get back to where it was. Approximately how long would it be until the development of all the homes would be complete?
That's completely market driven. The market in the city of Fountain right now is extremely active. We actually built through the northern section of Ventana maybe as much as 2 years ahead of what we had projected.
Okay.
So something like this could theoretically build out in 5 years, 6.
Will the Metro District fees decrease since the clubhouse and the pool won't change?
I don't think they're I can't really respond to that. The Metro District would have to respond to that. So I don't
Okay.
think there would be a change.
This is Christy. That question would need to be directed to the Metro District specifically, as their service plan would govern any type of fees and indebtedness that the district already has. That would not be something that the developer would be able to address.
Okay. And Christy, I'll need your help with this one. I already know the answer, but I'm going to let you handle this one. How can Challenger get away with building more homes when amenities promised to those whose purchased homes are either experiencing issues, some major with their home, or have amenities that are inadequate? Inquiries have been made to both the city and the Metro District, and they're not being addressed. How can we let them build more homes when the ones they've essentially built have not been to standard?
I'm not sure I can answer that specifically and in great detail, but the request before you tonight would be just specifically to amending the overall development plan to the land uses, and would be separate from any construction amenities or concerns that are being addressed with that. The city has worked with the developer on the improvements, so I'm not specifically aware of any amenities that have not been installed unless they were in a later phase, which are still under construction.
I remember when we did the development over at Cane Ranch, there were people from Cumberland Green coming over saying, you can't let these people build because the ones they've built in Cumberland Green were not adequate. And the response we got back from the city attorney was, those are two separate issues and we cannot consider, I believe the term he used was past performance or pending litigation or complaints when considering a new development. All right, let's see. Why was the Metro District not invited to the meeting, into this meeting, or showing attendance?
This is Christy. I can address that. The Metro District is actually in attendance and was notified of this meeting.
Okay. As soon as we get done with these questions, I will invite the Metro District to make comments. Let's see. Would additional access to Old Pueblo via Indiana be completed before the development of Ventana South? I don't believe the two are linked. I don't believe we can require them to wait until Indiana is completed. Is that correct, Christy?
That would be correct.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of statements, but not a lot of questions. How are the prairie dogs going to be addressed? Apparently in the area, there's a bunch of prairie dogs living. How do you plan on handling that?
We handle that in the same manner that we handled them on the previous filings. They are somewhat of a nuisance and they get removed, and that's how they're dealt with.
Okay.
Chairperson Rick, I would ask that you read the entire question into the record, please.
Sure. All right, let's start at the top. we have been getting issues. We already have issues getting to Santa Fe in the morning from Ventana with the people who live here now. Why are you wanting us to make it more congested for us? I moved from Denver to have a small town feeling, and now it's being stripped from me with this crap. So the question is, why are we wanting to congest Santa Fe more?
This is Jim Byers. I don't know how to respond to that. I don't think that's anybody's actual desire. We have committed a significant amount of money to help address traffic impact, and how that money gets spent. Like I said before, we're not going to try to dictate. We leave that up to the city and the folks that make those decisions to decide how that money gets spent.
Okay. Will the Ventana South HOA be the same as the Ventana North Metro District?
So
I
I think
believe-
I explained that a little bit earlier, but there would be an extension of the Metro District. The only HOA would be associated with Patio Homes that
Okay.
are in addition to the Metro District. Patio Home residents pay a Metro District fee.
Bottom line up front, how much are the patio homes going to sell for? What's the estimated impact on average property values in Fountain going to be? Has the impact been calculated or even considered?
Are they asking for an economic impact to the city for this development?
The average property value, the impact to average property value. And I believe you answered this question earlier. There's no way to know exactly what the impact is going to be, but generally, property values tend to rise as newer homes are built. I believe that was your earlier answer. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, we're building the same type of neighborhood, same type of product. The price points would be very consistent throughout the new development as the market would drive. But I think being consistent with the development north, moving that idea and its amenities south would support a positive or a stable property value.
Okay. So if
The question had already been previously addressed. You can just read the question into the record and then stipulate that the answer had already been provided.
Okay. So the question is, so if we raise taxes, we will bring in more commercial business, which would ultimately lead to higher influx of residents, which leads to higher property values. Is that not correct? We, as the Planning Commission, the Planning Department, and the developer cannot raise taxes. Power is granted to the voters. The City Council and a tax increase can be put to the voters, but building houses isn't going to raise taxes. So I've read the question into the record. The percentage of military residents currently living in Ventana is well over 70%. So why are the Developers Committee District justifying proposal of expansion due to the demand of homes for retirees? I guess to summarize, why do you feel that retirees are going to move here versus military personnel?
Military personnel will move there and will be welcomed there, but there's also a percentage of a population, and every population, of people that retire.
Okay.
I think another thing to note there is, I think in every community, the diversity and the different options within a market, so to speak, doesn't require people to move out of their neighborhood if they want to downsize or if they want to move closer to a particular part of the neighborhood. I think this would just give folks more opportunities, more options as they age or as their situation changes.
Okay, this is a statement. I do not have a question, but I want to emphasize the need for an additional pool, not just a splash pad. I'm new to the neighborhood and I'm already fearful of never being able to use the pool. So I'm just passing that along as a comment from the public. Is there a big issue with business not coming here? Is the overall demographic of Fountain along? Sorry, I lost my space. Question, how many phases are there projected to be for Ventana South? I may have missed that, so I apologize if it has already been addressed.
4.
Okay, 4. Thank you. Isn't the big issue with businesses not coming here is the overall demographic of Fountain along with the cost of liquor license? I don't know how to answer that. And Christy, I don't, no offense, but I'm not sure you're familiar with the demographics or the cost of liquor licenses. So I don't think there's anybody here that can answer this question.
No, I'm not familiar with those.
Okay. Finally, hello, I'm the district manager of Ventana North area. Wanted to address that question regarding the HOA versus the Metro District fee. Mrs. Rebecca Hardenkopf. I'm trying to find you here. Ms. Hardenkopf, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question or address the question.
All right, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to address the question. It was brought up a little bit ago from a public question about the HOA fees versus Metro District. I just wanted to clarify, there is no HOA currently. It is all Metro District. And so the dues the residents pay down there right now are all related to the Metro District. It's for trash service, recreation center, and then we do charge property taxes. All of the information regarding the difference between an HOA and a Metro District can be found on the Metro District's website.
Okay. And ma'am, do you have any other answers, questions, or comments about the questions that have already been asked?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall a lot of those questions that were asked. So some of those, I do want to encourage the residents who are here on the board that currently live in Ventana North, that the Metro board is actually meeting next Wednesday at 10 a.m. teleconference. And so you're more than welcome to attend that meeting. As far as development or amenities being discussed, it has been an ongoing discussion now for the past 3 months, proposed improvements to be made to the rec center based off of some feedback we got from the residents within the community. And it's just a matter of getting quotes and it being a capital improvement versus an actual operations and maintenance expense. And you're more than welcome to attend that. Those board packets are also provided on the website, and we have a detailed list of those proposed improvements, like a sauna, more free weights in the rec room. As far as the expansion for the building, we do not currently have anything any knowledge of what is going to be proposed for that expansion and how that's going to happen. That's going to be something that Challenger's going to have to develop and provide to us. That's not in place right now. Currently, we're just trying to improve the current amenity that's being provided. If there's any specific questions, I know my email is provided all over the rec center, all over the Facebook pages, all over the website. You are 100% more than welcome to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions specifically. I would like to keep this meeting, more related to the South Ventana South parcel being created, so that's why I'm trying to offer that solution there.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a Mr. Kevin Walker. Your hand is raised. Please, sir, if you would unmute yourself and ask your question.
So Rebecca did a fine job of answering the questions. I just wanted to make sure that we were represented.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any more questions? Seeing no hands raised for the public, is there any other staff questions before I close the public hearing? Okay, at 8:02, I close the public hearing. What would staff like to do or discuss? Do we want to have some discussion before we move forward with this?
Is that question directed to staff or to the members of the commission for discussion?
Members of the commission. Staff, do you have anything additional you would like to present before we move forward?
No, I don't have anything else to present. I believe that both the applicants who spoke tonight did represent the intent that what they have with their proposal and how they intend to mitigate some of the concerns. And the feedback that they did receive during their community meeting held last year concerning the amenities and the expansion. I would just like to emphasize again that the developers did work very closely with city staff to come to a consensus on not only the amenities that are being proposed within the Southern Park area, but with also the funding mechanism for the transportation improvements that are needed within this area. So I would like to just speak publicly and commend the developer for working so closely with the city, and we really do appreciate working with them.
Okay, thank you. Developer, do you have anything additional before we have a discussion among the commission?
No, thank you.
Okay. Speaking for myself and myself only, I am concerned about the issues that the public have presented regarding the substandard work, or what is perceived as substandard work on the previous houses in Ventana North, and the amenities that reportedly have not been completed that were promised. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to consider that when I make a decision like this. I have to consider the application and the application only. I will tell you, I am concerned about leaving this area as it is. Currently, if we leave it as it is, it becomes a area where planned industrial is where it's zoned. And for planned industrial, we could have a business come in here in this area that could be using hazardous material. We don't have a way in our current city code to restrict hazardous material if it's too close to a housing area. And if we were to leave it as planned industrial, we could get a business in there using hazardous material, and not only would they be using it, but if you think about it, it's going to come off the highway, it's going to come down 85, 87, it's going to go down Illinois, right past Aragon Elementary, and then it's going to come down Old Pueblo Road past Ventana North. And that area, especially in the wintertime, is rather slick and rather slippery. And I would be concerned about having an accident to where hazardous material was released near the school or near the housing area that could adversely affect people in Ventana. So I'm left with a choice of allowing it to possibly develop with hazardous material or changing it over to planned unit, to which, based off the public comments we got, is not well supported by members of the current Ventana North area. So neither choice is very palatable to me. I don't like it, but I have to go with the rights of the landowner. The landowner has the right to develop it one way or another. And if I have my choice, I would rather let them develop it as a housing area rather than a light industrial. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure that there are others who have different opinion, and I'll open the floor up to them and let them say their piece.
This is Commissioner Hackett-Larson. Can I just ask and get clarity on what type of incentives we're offering for commercial business to go in there, or had been offered in general?
There have not been any incentives offered.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Christy, it's not the planning department's prerogative to offer incentives. That's the economic development and the city council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
This is Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yes. Go ahead.
I just an observation from not having been on this commission as long as most of you, but it's just a slight observation. We tend to be pretty harsh on developers, which I get it. There's a lot at stake here, but if we want more business, we need more people. We're due to our super close proximity to the springs and the abundancy of businesses and amenities there. It's easy for everybody to go north. If we want better amenities, we want better businesses, we want more. Like, I would have loved to have a grocery store somewhere on Link. That'd be great. There's some great property. We just don't have the population for it, and so it's a real give and take, I feel. And I could be off a little bit, and I'm okay with being off a little bit. It's just an observation, but we've got to let some developers come in, and just like you said, Commissioner Riggles, it's their property. As long as they're following the rules, they're following the laws, putting in their permits, doing everything they're supposed to do, then they can decide what to do with the property. And I also side with you what you said about, what kind of businesses do those people that live in the Ventana community want next to their homes? Would they rather have another development or big industrial buildings with loud machinery? And so there's a lot of give and take, and I've learned a lot about it since being here with you guys, and I definitely appreciate that, but I just wanted to add my 2 cents there.
Okay, sir. Commissioner Johnson, I know you talked earlier about some concerns you had. Did you want to address it?
I'm like you. I'm torn. I understand the developer's argument about there not being demand for light industrial commercial in that area. I get it. Obviously someplace like Mesa Ridge Parkway, tons more traffic, more visibility. Old Pueblo Road is kind of out of way. It's just a little 2-lane road. I buy that argument, about not being able to attract quality commercial tenants. I guess I would be more comfortable with it if the development going in there was maybe a little less dense than what they're proposing in terms of dwelling units. You know, I live up on the mesa. I don't get down that way very often, but the times that I have been down there, you know, I, like you, Gordon, I'm a long time resident. My parents moved to Fountain in 1979. I've lived there since. And, you know, I've seen the growth and the traffic growth and the sort of inability of the city to sort of deal with it in a way that makes sense. Obviously, Old Pueblo, there's nowhere to go, you know, without taking some people's land away and rebuilding the bridge across Jimmy Camp, which is prohibitively expensive. And frankly, taking people's land is a bad look. I understand why the city doesn't like to do it. You know, it's bad all the way around. You know, I'm really torn with it. I guess I'd ultimately, in the end, have to reluctantly support it the way that they're configuring it. Just, you know, because it may sit there empty for years, and then, you know, like you say, you know, you may get some, you know, another manufacturer in there, like RMB is, you know, maybe they build some big metal monstrosity of a building that doesn't blend in with the neighborhood. You know, you never know what that would look like. So I guess ultimately I have to sort of reluctantly support it.
Yeah,
This
for the,
is Commissioner Hackett.
yes, go ahead.
I was just going to ask why, I'm just wondering, and I should have asked when I was on the line with them, that why there's not the consideration to retain the 57 acres for commercial, or however that breakdown was, for a proposed amount of time until they could get the units in there and then determine if it would be viable for commercial, because there's still a substantial amount of residential going in, and it seems, I wonder if that would generate, with the growth already happening, the units that we discussed last meeting over by Mesa Ridge High School, and these units, and then saying, okay, if it's not developed within this time, we're going to move it into residential, rather than make that decision now.
Christy, is that an option, or do we not have that option?
That would not be the option at this time. The request before you tonight would be to amend the overall development as submitted by the developer. So the item that needs to be considered would be that change.
So we would have to deny the developer's application, and then if they chose to submit an application saying, if we wait this long, it automatically turns over, and then we could consider it if they put in an application for that. Is that correct?
Sort of. You wouldn't be able to condition that after a certain amount of time that a certain land use changes without going through the public hearing process.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hackett-Larson, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rainville, would you care to comment?
So I think I concur with Commissioner Rick and also Johnson about I'm disappointed with the lack of the commercial building, especially the severe decrease from 54, 57 down to 3. But I also understand where Commissioner Rick was saying that he's lived there for several decades, and you know, the open space or the commercial space that we have currently in that area, no one's been building on. So you know, what makes us think that commercial would come in there now? And there is 3 acres, so that's going to help a little bit with the commercial acreage. But you know, I would like to see more commercial, but there is nothing that really we can do and tell them. And it doesn't seem like commercial is willing to come in there at this time. And you know, even with the commercial, there is other areas in that vicinity that has commercial opening. So if they do develop this land and residential units, I think that commercial does have options down the road that they can, you know, physically down the road that they can come in and purchase land that is zoned commercial. So again, I was kind of disappointed with the decrease with commercial, but I will be supporting it just because, it's got some commercial and then, the residential, and I like the increase of the open space. Seems like there's lots of open space, and just hopefully the Metro District can, get something done with completing the trails, especially in the current Metro District that they have, where the trails supposedly aren't being completed, but that's a Metro District issue and not the Planning Commission issue. But that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Finally, Commissioner Apodaca, do you have anything you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, just seeing from commercial comes into these areas, what they're looking for a lot nowadays is access to the interstates or railroad. Railroad isn't a viable option much, so the access to the interstate is important. So that's why a lot of this area doesn't get developed much, because of the access to the interstate. It's limited. You either go down Old Pueblo Road to the racetrack area, and that's hard to get around and maneuver around that area. And then you got to go through Illinois and that way. So to not say not to do it, I mean, they're bringing in some base of tax, maybe not as much as a commercial would, but I mean, being that I wish it would be, the commercial land would be bigger for more type of business come in, but I mean, they look at their numbers and they need to get what they need to do to get out of it. So they got to minimize that to what they feel they need to. So that's pretty much all I have to say on it. I mean, like most everybody said, I wish it was more commercial available, but I don't see nothing coming there in the near future.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So I think we've beat this one pretty hard. Would somebody care to make a motion as to what we want to do with this proposal? Commissioner Rainville.
I make a motion that we approve the Ventana Overall Development Plan Amendment Number 3, subject to the following conditions. Prior to scheduling this term with the City Council action, all staff and agency comments must be addressed, and the execution of a water main extension agreement between Rivers Ventana LLC and the City of Fountain for the construction of this off-site water mains.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Apodaca.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and second. Ms. Joni, would you please call for the vote? Ms. Carneal?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, not sure how I was stuck, but Commissioner Rick, how do you vote?
Unfortunately, yes.
Vice Chairperson Johnson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Hackett-Larson, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner LeBlanc, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Rainville, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Apodaca, how do you vote?
Yes.
I have 5 yes, 1 no. Commissioner Hackett-Larson voting no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. Ms. Martinez.
Thank you. Good evening again. The only case report that was included in the packet tonight was a submitted site development plan for a small pump house at the Security Water and Sanitation District of South Florida.
Okay, thank you. Miss Brandy Williams, do you have anything?
I just wanted to, I'm here. I just want to take the opportunity to thank the Planning Commission for those of you who could attend our stakeholder meeting for the Master Transportation Plan. And our plan is to bring that to City Council in April. So the public and council at that point in time can have an opportunity to comment on that. And again, all planning commissioners are welcome to attend that meeting as well. And I'm sure the clerk's office will have it posted here in the next month.
All righty, thank you. And we are lucky tonight that the city attorney, Mr. Troy Johnson, is in attendance. Sir, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Oh, I thought I was going to fly under the radar. No, I'm good. Nothing else for me.
All righty, thank you. Ms. Carneal, Joni, do you have anything for us?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay. Planning Commission members, anyone have any additional questions, comments, or concerns? Vice Chairman Johnson.
Just real quick, I guess this is for Brandy. The proposed Indiana Avenue crossing, I drove past there the other day. Has a design been finalized, or have they looked at that? Because judging from the current alignment, it basically takes you like a couple feet off the current bank, and the bank entrance. I mean, how are the existing buildings in that area going to be affected? Has that all been looked at? I'm just curious because I sort of envisioned this being several years out. Now you're saying they want to get it done this year, presuming railroad approval. Is there a finalized design that we can look at for that?
At this point in time, we do have the plans. So if you want to just send me an email, I can point you in the right direction. The holdup right now is really BNSF working through their ever-changing process. So the bank is aware of the roads, where the road's going. There's actually a portion of the property that we had to buy from the bank and swap with the bank. So there's a lot of stories. If you want to just have a phone call, I can fill you in, and don't need to keep the Planning Commission waiting this evening. But yes, there's a lot of parts and pieces, and we're trying to get it underway as fast as possible because, again, thankfully we have those funds from Challenger combined with moving fountain forward funds, combined with grants that I've received from PPACG. So hopefully when I put all those piles of money together, we can get this thing built. And then at that point in time, the railroad crossing on Illinois will be closed.
Okay, that was my next question. So thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other Planning Commission members have questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, I don't have anything. However, Joni, do you have my phone number? Can you call me once we're done?
If you want to send that to me in an email, I can do that. I do not.
I will send you an email to your work email with my phone number. Thank you. Is there anything else we need to do before I close the meeting?
Oh, I think you're good.
Okay, time is now 8:24 p.m., March 3rd, 2021. I hereby adjourn the meeting. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.